Hey everyone, it's Megan and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be starting a new series that's all about one of my favorite shows, One Tree Hill. It's kind of inspired by Bridget's Supernatural review videos, so I'll be sure to link them above and in the description if you want to check them out. But I am going to be going through the entire series of the show season by season and doing a little bit of a review on them. So to start it off, I'm going to be talking about season 1 of the show, where it all started. So if you don't know anything about One Tree Hill, it is about two brothers who share the same father and the love of basketball. But they both have different mothers and they were raised differently, and now they're both thrown into the world of basketball and they have to figure out, can they get along, where they all stand, and it's such a fun show to watch because you have all these great characters and all these amazing actors that are within the show. And I actually started watching the show because Chad Michael Murray, I'd followed him, or I'd first seen him on Gilmore Girls, and then on Dawson's Creek, and then there was this TV movie that was supposed to be on WB, or that was on the WB, that I meant to watch, but I never got around to it, called The Lone Ranger. And then when I saw he was in a new TV show, I just had to tune in. So I tuned in for Chad Michael Murray, and I stayed for the show, and now it's become one of my favorite shows of all time. So the main characters of the show are Nathan Scott, played by James Lafferty, Lucas Scott, played by Chad Michael Murray, Haley James, played by Bethany Joy Lenz, Brooke Davis, played by Sophia Bush, and Peyton Sawyer, played by Hilary Burton. Then the other stars of the show for the first season and throughout the first 5 seasons are Dan Scott, played by Paul Johansson, Whitey Durham, played by Ben Corpson, Deb Scott, played by Barbara Linwood, Keith Scott, played by Craig Schaffer, probably saying his name terribly, sorry, and then Karen Rowe, played by Maura Kelly. So that's just about the main cast of the show. There's also Marvin McFadden, also known as Mel, played by Lee Norris, Antoine Taylor, played by Antoine Tanner, and then you have Fergie and Junk, who are played by Colin Moss and Vaughn Wilson. I think that's about it for the first season. So basically how the season starts is that Whitey Durham, who is the coach of the basketball team, gets so basically how it starts is that Keith Scott gets the attention of Whitey Durham, the basketball coach, and shows him how well Lucas can play, because Lucas doesn't play basketball in an actual court. He plays it on an outside court with all his friends, and they just kind of do it for fun, whereas Nathan plays the sport to be the best and to hopefully make it to the NBA one day. So Whitey ends up trying to convince Lucas to join the team because he knows he's good and he knows he should have a place on the team regardless of who his father is and the issues they face together. And eventually, when Nathan gets wind of this, he battles Lucas, or rather challenges Lucas to a battle that if Nathan wins, Lucas doesn't join the team, and if Lucas wins, Nathan quits the team, or so he says. But in the end, you find out that Lucas said that if he wins, he joins the team and Nathan stays on the team because he knows that's not what Nathan wants. So in the end, Lucas wins and he joins the team. And so the first season really starts off this whole journey of Lucas being a part of the team and what that means for Lucas's family and Nathan's family and how they interact. And in the process, Lucas is pining over Peyton, who is actually Nathan's girlfriend for the first couple of episodes until she finally decides to dump him because they were not a good couple at the time. They end up growing up to be really great friends, but at the time they were not a great couple. Brooke ends up kind of falling for Lucas and wanting to be his girlfriend. So the two end up getting together at some point, but Lucas is still so hung up on Peyton that he ends up cheating on Brooke with Peyton. And that breaks them up, and it ends up breaking up the friendship between Brooke and Peyton. And also, Nathan ends up going after Lucas's best friend, Haley James, to try and get at Lucas, but in the end, he ends up falling for Haley, and the two end up married by the end of the season. And then there's, and I forgot about Jake Grokowski. Oh wow, why am I falling on name? Played by Brian Greenberg. So he's a player on the team who doesn't listen to Nathan and sticks up for Lucas because, he's not that mean guy type. He's sweet. He also has this deal going on with Whitey that he can leave practice early, he can be late to practice, all because he has to take care of this baby girl that got left with him because this college girl that he slept with, who ended up pregnant, just left the baby with him. She ends up coming back, wanting to be a part of his and their baby's life, but Jake is too afraid that it's not going to work out, and she's just going to take their daughter and run. So he ends up running first, which ends up devastating Peyton because Peyton ended up falling for Jake at one point, and so she ends up losing him, losing her best friend, and also losing Lucas because the final episode of the season, Lucas decides to leave with Keith, who really kind of screwed up. And Keith is in love with Karen, Lucas's mother, and the two have been friends, and he's been in love with her for years, and he was finally going to make it official, but she ended up going to Italy to go to her dream school, and when she came back, when Keith and Lucas went to go meet her at the airport, they ended up getting into a car accident because Keith had drank a little bit too much. Now, it wasn't because Keith was drunk, but Karen didn't appreciate that Keith had drank before getting in a car with Lucas. So that kind of ruined things. And then one night when he was feeling sorry for himself, he ends up sleeping with Deb, Dan's wife, who is trying to divorce him because Dan is manipulative. SOB. So Keith ends up taking a job as a mechanic in another place because he lost his mechanic shop because they were losing money, so he ended up needing someone to buy it, and Dan ends up buying it. It's like this whole big thing. Rivalry between Dan and Keith. It continues on, so he ends up taking a job as an automotive teacher in another town, and Lucas ends up going with him. And in the final episode, you also see Peyton and Brooke kind of find a way to become friends again. And it kind of ends with Dan getting ready to sign the divorce papers to Deb when he ends up having a heart attack, with Deb coming in wanting to save him, and him saying the words, "You better hope I die." End of season. So the thing about this season is that it really sets up the storylines for the entire show. And it's one of those shows that you kind of never knew whether or not it would continue, because, you know, at the time, it didn't really have the ratings, I would say. It had the fan following, but it just didn't have the ratings that, you know, the network would have probably wanted. So it was kind of one of those things, like, it was a little show that could, and it kept going. So this season set it all up to continue following it. And it was just really nicely done. You had the two brothers, Lucas and Nathan, butting heads, only to end up realizing that, you know, why are they following in their father's and uncle's footsteps? You know, just because, you know, their father was a terrible person in his life doesn't mean that they had to be terrible people or they had to fight. So they ended up finding a way to, you know, connect and end up being brothers, which was really nice, because the whole season could have gone with the two of them trying to outdo each other or trying to fight with each other the entire time, but it didn't. They ended up finding a way to be brothers and come together, especially when Nathan ended up dating Haley after he kind of royally screwed that up and then fixed that. You know, it was something that Lucas didn't approve of at first, but he ended up, you know, accepting it and being happy for his best friend, because she was finding someone that was good for her, because she could change Nathan for the better. And it also set up the whole terrible, horrible love triangle that was Peyton, Lucas, and Brooke. That went on too long, and I have so many things to say about that one, but that's for later. But it set that up, because, you know, Lucas likes Peyton, Peyton likes Lucas, Brooke likes Lucas, Lucas likes Brooke, and you never know, like, who he could be with, you know. And of course, in the very first episode, which is the pilot, Brooke doesn't actually show up. She doesn't show up till the second episode. But you see the chemistry between Brooke and Lucas. They're two opposites, but they work well together, whereas Peyton and Lucas are more similar in a sense. Not to mention that Lucas pissed off Peyton more times than he could count throughout that whole season, but he was doing it out of a place of somewhere he was trying to be nice and trying to do something for him. You know, he wasn't trying to do it to piss her off. He was trying to do it to help her. So it was just all those fun little things. So I wouldn't say it's my favorite season of the show, but it's one of the ones that I like out of them. And it just kind of really gets, you really get to understand the characters and kind of where they all are in their life and who likes who and who doesn't like who and why certain people are kind of the way they are. Like when it came to Dan, you could understand why he was the way he was because there was an episode that had his father in the show, and his father was the type to really control him and try and turn him into something that he might not have wanted to be. And then Dan just takes that and ends up being that type of father to Nathan by like forcing him to really, you know, work to be the best basketball player that he could be so he could make it to the NBA, because Dan never made it to the NBA. But so I don't want to but I do highly I do highly recommend, if anyone loves the teen drama type shows, to definitely watch this. It is really interesting and entertaining, and it's just very fun to watch. It's also really great when it comes to like editing. They do like a fantastic job with all the different like ways they edit. It's also got like a fantastic soundtrack. At least it does throughout the whole series, along with like the editing. Whole series is fantastic for editing, for music. It's a really great show, and I highly recommend it. So that is season 1, and I will be, like I said, this will be a little series I'll be doing, so I'll be doing each season. So next up will be season 2. So until next time, bye guys.